An annual spectacle is about to take place in Washington. It's one that shows so much of what's wrong with today's media. It's called the White House Correspondents Association Dinner. You hear about it because presidents make jokes when they attend. Here was Biden last year.
Of course, the 2024 election's in full swing. And yes, age is an issue. I'm a grown man running against a 6-year-old.
Comedians usually host it, but this year the White House Correspondents Association dropped the plan to have a comedian host. They didn't offer much of an explanation. They just said they won't be focusing on the politics of division. But that move does nothing to address what's actually wrong with this event and the deep media failures it signifies. One of the problems with it has gotten some attention in recent years. That is how these journalists and the figures in government that they're supposed to be covering are presenting themselves to the nation and the world as co-members of this elite Washington club. But there is a much deeper problem here. It's one that lies at the core of why the media fails to get you the truth. The corrosive power of quote-unquote fame. Coming up, you'll hear a political operative talk about how that led people in his party to do things that are, in his words, evil. But it's not just one party and not just politicians whose desire for a sense of fame leads them so far away from what their mission in Washington is supposed to be. It does that to the media, too. In the news business, there is an obsession with feeling famous that overtakes people's minds. And as a result, they engage in anti-journalistic activities to try to maintain that feeling or build up that feeling. And it gets worse. That feeling fills some people with hubris, which leads them to feel confident making all kinds of sweeping claims that aren't justified by facts. I know this might sound confusing, but hey, after a full year of this show, you may know by now that I will make it all very clear. I'll also explain how this problem affects the way big stories are structured, including the current battles over elite universities like Harvard and Columbia, as Trump tries to crack down on them. And maybe worst of all, how it affects the way the media presents the job of the U.S. president. So it should be no surprise that a media giant on its flagship political show just the other day, with everything going on, devoted about 20% of the show to talking with a guy who is famous for something that has nothing to do with politics or running an organization or anything else relevant to the U.S. presidency, and discussed with him the possibility of him becoming president, even though it was clear he doesn't have any particular knowledge to bring to the job. All that, plus a crucial lesson today's media needs to learn from the Enron scandal more than 20 years ago, and why my voice might sound a little bit different today. All that's coming up on They Stand Corrected. Hello and welcome. I'm Josh Levs, and this is my podcast, They Stand Corrected, which fact checks the news. I'm back after a week off when the show hit 52 episodes, which means 52 weeks. I took a week off, took the family to Orlando. We went to Disney World and Universal, had a great time. The only downside is I managed to pick up a bit of a cold. I'm better now, but my voice is still a little bit off. So I might sound a little bit different to you today, even though I've used all the tricks I know from my days on NPR and CNN. Anyway, I'm not letting this week go by without talking about this problem, which is so obvious this week. You know, sometimes the zeitgeist makes obvious which topic I need to cover at any given time, and that is what happened here. The disgusting White House Correspondents Association dinner is coming up when the Washington Press Corps tries to feel like a pack of celebrities and act like they are celebrities and go wild over people they think of as actual celebrities, which they want to be. It's so damaging in ways that I will get into. And at the same time, I just did another column the other day for something called The Contrarian, in which I fact-checked the Sunday talk shows. As part of that, I had to witness this journalistic debacle.
And will he or won't he?
I have no desire to be a politician, but I've decided I'm no longer going to close that door.
Our exclusive with ESPN's Stephen A. Smith, the king of the hot take, takes on Trump and the Democrats and why he's thinking about running for president.
The media's lack of self-awareness is incredible. That was ABC's This Week. Here's where we are in America. We have a president who clearly does not have any clue how the government works, how economies work, or what he's doing. His department heads don't even know what they've been getting rid of. Basic functions of our nation that people pay for with their tax dollars suddenly no longer exist. Veterans are getting screwed over. People can't get Social Security on the phone. We've halted scientific projects to keep America safe, to keep people alive. And all of this is being done under a president who became a political player purely because he's a celebrity and he played into the media's obsession with celebrity. This is a huge part of how we got here in the first place. The way the US media treats the presidency as a popularity contest and giving attention to whoever's making the most noise, instead of stopping to tell the audience what the presidency even is, what the job is, to run the economy in a way that works for everyone and keep the nation safe. The United States presidency is a job. You might love the person who paints your home, but does that mean you want them to do surgery on you? So you love someone for some other category. Okay, that doesn't mean they should be president. It's so obvious. Someone being famous for something else does not translate into the skills needed in a president. But the media has been doing this for years, ignoring the concept of what the presidency is, normalizing the idea that anyone can just become president, especially a celebrity. So ABC, on what is supposed to be their main political show, brought in someone from another part of the same company, by the way, ESPN, and devoted about 20% of the show to a conversation filled with deep thoughts like this.
I think they've said that we've lost over 5 million manufacturing jobs over the last 20 plus years or so. I don't know if that's coming back, particularly with the age of AI, Chat GPT, and other things coming into the forefront. I just can't see that happening. But again, if that's the song that you want to sing to the American public, to the constituency out there that you think is going to vote for you, he seems very convincing.
This is not a diss on Stephen A. Smith, by the way. As far as I can tell, he didn't do anything wrong here. In fact, he is the one who pointed out that this is not how the presidency should be filled.
What is it going to take to get the job done? That's why somebody who's a sports analyst, for crying out loud, is in the daggone polls. It's not somebody big up in me. It's an indictment against a Democratic Party that doesn't have leadership and doesn't have a vision.
Americans need the media to focus on the stakes of a presidency, to talk in clear terms about basics of how a government functions and how we as a nation should choose candidates. But they do this instead. Here was CNN in 2023.
Blasting into a presidential election in which polls say many voters don't like either main candidate, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, actor, wrestler, superstar, is hinting at a run.
If that's truly what the people want, then of course I will consider it.
There's similar stuff with an actor, Matthew McConaughey. All these folks explain that political operatives and people they know have come to them and said, you really should consider doing this. And that's probably true. But the media does not have to feed into it. Tell people what the job is and what it makes sense to look for in a candidate. Show how ridiculous the other way of thinking is. Use your reach to call for sanity. Instead, people become actual contenders based on branding, popularity, and no one in the media doing the job to stop and point out the insanity of this. I mentioned Trump earlier. It's also true that Democrats have done this too. Barack Obama had just become a senator when he entered the race for president and had no track record to demonstrate that he knew how to harness the tools of the presidency to get a lot done. Now, I'm not saying he's the same as Trump. He's not. At least he respected what the U.S. presidency is and the whole concept of balance of powers. He had an understanding of the Constitution and of laws. But there also was some level of cult of personality around him, the media going wild. I remember this. I was at CNN at the time. People were saying Obama-palooza and creating this celebrity craze around him. We, the people, hire a president. We, the people, need to know what the job is and how it works, so we can decide who will do the job well. Here's a celebrity who might run. That is nonsense. but it's nonsense the media loves, because in the media, there's a deep problem with worshiping fame. Which brings us to the White House Correspondents Association dinner. It has faced criticism before. Here is classic TV network news anchor Tom Brokaw. This was in 2013. He was talking to Politico. Here are a few clips of what he said.
I would try to put myself in the person of an interested citizen in Kansas City or Little Rock or in Spokane, Washington, saying, that's the Washington Press Corps? I mean, there was more dignity at my daughter's junior prom. Are we doing their business, or are we just a group of narcissists who are mostly interested in elevating our own profiles? What we're doing with that dinner is saying, we're Versailles. We'll let the rest of you eat cake.
And it's not just one night. Here's an ABC report from back in 2011.
It's become an annual competition to see who will land the biggest names in news and in Hollywood. And what started off as one dinner has now become an entire week of nonstop parties to celebrate the celebrities and let Washington's powerful rub elbows with the Hollywood elite.
In the last episode, a guest joined me to explain why people don't see themselves reflected in the media, especially from Washington. They see it as a bunch of elites who are out of touch with real life. Well, you can't blame them when these are the kinds of reports they do about this dinner. This one is from CNN in 2022.
A lot more celebrities than we did in previous years. Most notably, of course, Kim Kardashian, Pete Davidson. I'm dying to know why Pete Davidson did not go up on that Blue Origin spacecraft like he was supposed to do a few weeks ago. I tried to ask him, wasn't able to get an answer in, but Drew Barrymore was here. One of the big Succession actresses, Jerry, if you watch the show, is here. So we are getting a little bit more of that Hollywood flavor at this year's dinner.
There are critics who point out that it's not just elitist, it's also a matter of trust. At these events, journalists are kissing and hugging and hobnobbing with politicians they're supposed to cover. How can an audience possibly expect these journalists to then cover folks legitimately? When I see this stuff, I often think of Enron. There's a good lead to a story about Enron way back in 2002 in the Los Angeles Times. And it was about how virtually the entire media had missed what was really going on at Enron. Here's the lead to the story. A Fortune magazine survey called it the most innovative company in the country for 6 straight years. The New York Times said it was a model for the new American workplace. The Dallas Morning News described it as one of the most envied and respected corporations in the United States. Business Week looked at one of its pioneering ventures and said the risk is remarkably small. This article then goes on to explore the reality of the media missing what was really going on at Enron. And if you follow the Enron story, you know what was happening was corruption, lies, and a lot of people in the media just not looking. Eventually, a whistleblower and some journalists figured it out, and the company fell apart. But the news establishment had not been looking past the facade. In journalism, you have to maintain a clear perspective, and that includes some social distance from the people you're covering. You're not their friend. If your friend is in the news, you cannot cover that person because they're your friend. This is not complicated. You're also not there to experience elitism together. You're there as a journalist for the mission, to be a warrior for truth. Leave glitz and glamour to entertainers. If lawmakers want to feel that way, that's on them. People can judge them for that. Journalists have no place in that game, but so many of them desire it. I saw it on the inside, and I saw the terrible journalistic decisions that are made as a result. That is coming up.
Watch me shine, watch me glow. This is the love life, so nice. Luxury, luxury. This is the love life, so nice.
I received an announcement from Substack, which is the platform that my newsletter runs on. They informed me that the newsletter, They Stand Corrected, is now a bestseller. I am always a little wary of these designations because I can't fact check them, which I know is so me, right? Take the win. But here's what I do know. It's because people like you have been making the choice to support this show, to help make it possible. Here are some notes from people who have signed up recently to become paid subscribers. Jim writes, I'm tired of having to fact check each article I read on my own, plus having to find and read original documents like legislation, court documents, etc. Patrick Martin writes, you do important work and I want to support it. The challenge is getting the facts out to those who are already exposed to the lies. Yep. And Michael Ward writes, I have heard so many whoppers from Trump's appointees lately. The lies flow daily from all of them. I quit watching Fox News years ago because of the lies. I want to keep track of the lies being told to millions of people. Thank you to them and so many others from across the country, from all walks of life, all different political persuasions, who have been signing up to support this show. With each episode, I've been sending out multiple newsletters that offer links and information and additional content just for paid subscribers. You'll see my answers to your questions, and I determine what to talk about in this show, largely based on supporters. As we enter this second year of They Stand Corrected, my plan is to send out even more extra content. So, if you have not yet, please support this show by becoming a paid subscriber to the newsletter or make any contribution via PayPal. You can find a link in the show notes or just go to paypal.me/JoshLebs. Supporters like you are the reason that this show made it through a year and the reason that, fingers crossed, we'll make it through the next year too. A former top Republican operative named Tim Miller did an interview with Fresh Air on public radio, WHYY, in 2022. He talked about what fame does to people in Washington.
You're getting invited to these parties with celebrities the weekend of the Correspondents dinner. All of a sudden, people like Sean Spicer, who I write about, are getting asked for selfies all the time on the street by Trump supporters. They're getting recognized. Their parents' friends see them. They hear from mom that, Joni from the club said that their boy's doing great. All of that stuff is really, really appealing, especially to people who kind of didn't get that when they were growing up. So really, it's this kind of banal desire to be seen, to be recognized for affirmation, drove a lot of people to do things that are pretty evil.
It's addictive. There's a lot of research around this, and I've seen how this same kind of fame affects people who are supposed to be journalists. A lot of people go into broadcasting not because they care about the mission, but because they want to be quote unquote famous. I always tell people when I speak at journalism schools, when I go anywhere, that is for entertainers, not for a mission-driven profession. We are more like doctors, military, firefighters. You're in it for the mission. But news agencies have played into this idea by trying to turn journalists into quote unquote stars. They talk about star reporters, their hosts as stars. I can tell you, having worked inside NPR and CNN, especially CNN, because it's even more corrosive when your image is out there. It leads to all kinds of bad journalistic decisions. Here's just one way it happens. People schedule guests for interviews who are crazy and have no clue what they're talking about. The producers, the bookers know this person is going to lie. They book this person because they and the host think it will make the host look good when he or she really skewers this person. If the person is not worth hearing from in the first place, there is no reason to platform them. But the idea is it will build up the quote unquote star of whatever that news program is. And then the host usually gets steamrolled anyway, and the person comes on and says all kinds of things that are not fact-checked. So people end up hearing these lies. None of it is journalism. It's all damaging. In late 2023, CNN hosted a disastrous town hall for then candidate Trump. This was right after a jury found him liable for sexual abuse in the E. Jean Carroll case. It was awful. He came on and just completely steamrolled over the host. But the next day, the guy who was running CNN at the time, Chris Licht, praised the host, Caitlin Collins, as a rock star. Now, you could say, okay, that's being nice, whatever, but I can tell you those terms, star, stardom, star of the show, they don't belong in news, and they're mental poison. Executives are trying to create quote-unquote stars, but that's not how news works. Sure, it can work at Fox, in which people are there to be talking heads and be adored and support certain candidates. But when you're ostensibly there for actual journalism, there's no role for stardom. By the way, CNN's own media reporter at the time acknowledged how awful it was. But stardom is part of the equation in the way that people in charge of news operations are organizing what they attempt to do. Many years ago, before I was even on air at CNN, I pitched to one of our top executives that we do segments each day called Yesterday's Guests, in which we would fact check what the previous day's guests said. I said, look, if we do this, maybe people won't lie as much when they come on the air in the first place. And this top executive told me, no, we couldn't do that because it would embarrass our anchors. First of all, it shouldn't. Second of all, that has nothing to do with the mission of journalism. We're not there for egos. We're there to get people the truth. But the concept of suggesting that didn't work because when you're trying to build up and coddle stars, you don't think journalistically. This same thing happens with authors, by the way. People achieve a certain level of fame and then they just get away with saying whatever they want when they are interviewed on news programs and no one checks whether what they're saying is true. On this show, I spoke about this author, Ta-Nehisi Coates. He is considered a star. People adore him. No one in the media bothers to check whether what he's saying is true. He wrote a book that is filled with false and misleading statements about Israel. But hey, he's famous, so he gets booked everywhere. This stuff happens all the time. And it goes even further. People in news begin to see themselves this way. And then they go off and do interviews on entertainment shows, and they make false and unsupported statements, but they feel perfectly legitimate in doing so because they have this level of hubris that they know more than they actually know. On the show, I've played you clips from Christiane Amanpour on The Daily Show. She was there because she's a famous journalist. And on that show, she pretended that Al Jazeera is legitimate journalism, that Qatar's state-run propaganda giant, which lies all the time, which openly and proudly celebrates terrorism, is somehow this trustworthy source of truth. It isn't, but no one challenges her. She's famous. Social media has made this fame problem worse. I saw it when it was first happening, and I saw how disturbing it was because I was covering social media on air on CNN. I was seeing how it was starting to take off. People say things on the air, or they publish a story at their newspaper, and they tweet about it, post it on Facebook, and they rush to follow any and all likes and positive comments. You can see it happening. This brain chemistry is happening right before you. This dopamine feedback loop in which each response in some positive way boosts the ego even more. And none of that has anything to do with whether what they're saying is accurate or helpful or productive. But it is a sense of fame. That's all it is. It's just this vacuous thing. It's not helping you. It's not serving the cause. Now, in addition to all these problems, there's also another problem. People in the media sometimes weaponize fame by using their platforms to make someone famous because they want you to take a position on an issue. That is coming up. A piece of not so good news. Although listenership to this show has been expanding, only a tiny percentage of you have done the rate and review thing on the apps. That makes all the difference. That is how those algorithms that control so much of our lives know to suggest this show to other people. If you use Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it takes just a matter of seconds to look at the app and click to give the show 5 stars. And on Apple, you can give it a great review. I see the reviews from every individual who takes the time. And if there is a way to reach out to them directly, I do. I also have merch for those who give this show a great review and a great rating. In order to see how to do this, you can just look at the link in the show notes, or if you're listening on your phone, just open the app you're using. And if you scroll down, you should see a place to rate and or review. If you've gotten anything out of this show, that is one free thing you can do to support it. It helps so much. Thank you. In recent weeks, the media has been working to push one person's name in particular in the news. Here's just one of thousands of examples. This is a CNN host, Abby Phillip, who posted this on social media.
Detained Columbia student Mahmoud Khalil is speaking out now for the first time about the conditions that he has experienced while being detained by the United States government. Here's how he starts the letter. He says, "My name is Mahmoud Khalil and I am a political prisoner." They have not charged him with a crime still, even after all these days, but they have said that his actions supported Hamas. They will have to explain that to a judge, though.
This kind of thing happens for a reason. The media and attorneys for folks like that work to make someone famous. They want an individual name to stick out in your mind. Sometimes one way I analyze the news is I think, who in America could walk into a room right now and get the hugest standing ovation and cheers from people who pay attention to these big mainstream news outlets? I'm not sure anyone would get a bigger hero's welcome than this guy, this pro-terror radical from Columbia University. The media has been pushing him as some imaginary symbol of free speech. I've discussed this before. He isn't. There's a specific law for green card holders saying you cannot support or encourage support for terrorist organizations. This is not a question. He has done this. He has personally handed out Hamas information, downplayed Hamas atrocities, worked to justify them, encouraged support for Palestinian Islamist terrorist groups. This is factually what he has done. It's on video. People have been there. Think about the incredible hubris here. He is on a green card and does that in violation of a green card law. But if fame is something people want, well, he is getting it in droves. Meanwhile, all of these awesome, hardworking people on green cards who have followed the laws, like a woman I told you about on this show. I played a clip from her, a former Miss Iraq. She fought with the U.S. military. She says how awful it is what he's been doing. They don't get 1/1,000,000th of this attention. Due process matters. He and everyone else should get due process. And to the extent that they're not, that is awful. It's a horrible thing being done by the Trump administration. And there absolutely should be demands that stop. There also is a specific due process for green card holders that is different from what U.S. citizens get. And that's something that the media won't tell you. It's legal for U.S. citizens to say and do certain things that green card holders are not allowed to do. And that's fair, too. It's been that way under every administration because the United States should keep out of the country people who support anti-democratic hate movements like Hamas and other Palestinian Islamist terrorist organizations. The media is burying the truth and using its power to try to make him, this one guy, famous. This is the result of decisions inside news agencies. I've been there when they make decisions like this to use their power to keep bringing up an individual and to create images of people. It is, by definition, a way of weaponizing fame, getting people worked up based on the idea of a person rather than providing the two ingredients of truth, facts plus context. Every day lately, major news organizations keep this one guy's name in the news in a sanitized way. They could say and should say that even someone who has done the despicable things he's done and obviously violated this green card law, even these folks should get due process. That would be accurate. But instead, they just let him call himself a political prisoner whose free speech is being denied, and they don't even tell you what the law says. They say the Trump administration will have to prove certain things about what he's done. Sure, that's true in court, but you're the media. Tell us what is already known for certain. It happened openly, on video, and with lots of witnesses. Where are those facts in the reporting? In the mainstream media, they are gone because they don't boost the image the media wants to give you. That is how weaponizing fame works. As always, I would love to hear from you. I want to know what you think. Send me your questions, your feedback. If there's facts I missed, if there's facts I got wrong, please tell me. I look forward to doing segments called I Stand Corrected because I want to show everyone it's perfectly fine. You get something wrong and then you correct it. The problem is doubling down if you are wrong and ignoring truth because it's inconvenient, which sadly is what mainstream media is doing all the time. There are two great ways to contact me. The best is to be a paid subscriber to the newsletter. You can message me there. There is also a form at my website, joshlevs.com, which anyone can use. As always, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully my voice will be back by the time I see you next week.